Due to the fact that Audie Murphy was a massive gambler and that we were rather washed out, I only ever played for $100 with $100 bills. We could do that if we ended up roughly even. And the director, Don Siegel, and I usually do. The most amiable outlaw the movie has ever seen, Jack Elam, is the subject of a rumored tale in vintage Hollywood taverns. He treated people better than most celebrities handled their agents, purchased beverages for the workers, and made jokes with everyone. However, his smile disappeared and the atmosphere became chilly as soon as one specific name was spoken. Jack was once made fun of by that actor in front of the whole team. The paradox was that millions of people liked him as a superstar. Come learn the truth about what actually transpired and why Jack Elam never forgot it. First up, Gary Cooper. No performer ever made Jack Elam angry as quickly or as consistently as Gary Cooper. There was no physical altercation or yelling match that led to the animosity. Being treated as like he wasn't even human was the root of it. Jack endured Cooper's calm superiority in the most degrading manner imaginable, and it had the power to pierce deeper than any insult. It took place in the early 1950s on a dusty Western set. Jack was still trying to establish himself as a character actor. He took his place and waited for Cooper to pass the Q&E to him. Cooper, however, did not acknowledge him. Instead, he bent his head slightly and peered through Jack rather than at him. Jack once told a friend about it. I wasn't a guy, not even an actor, and he looked at me like I was a smudge on the lens. The breaking point then arrived. Cooper approached the director and said, "Can't we put him in my queue," without lowering his voice. "He is a distraction." "Yes, it's just distracting." Jack remembered that one word with the same rage decades later because it was so ingrained in his memory. Respect on set was really important to Jack. Even though they weren't the main players, character actors carried the emotional weight of moments. Not only was it painful, but being written off like furniture was an outright insult to his dignity. And his resentment grew when he witnessed critics praising Cooper's hardly noticeable performances as brilliant. In private, Jack didn't hold back. He wasn't faking it. He let the headgear do the work while he stood motionless. With a mixture of terror and respect, the stuntmen and supporting actors whispered the sentence to one another. Jack Elam had waged war on one of the untouchable icons of Hollywood. The animosity remained firm. Jack's bitterness persisted long after Cooper passed away in 1961. Even years later, Jack would pause, chuckle dryly, and respond, "Just don't ask me about Cooper," when questioned about icons from the golden period. It wasn't envy. It was humiliation. And humiliation was never forgiven by Jack Elam. John Wayne is number 2. The one individual Jack Elam would not support was John Wayne. The instant Wayne determined that the camera was his and his alone, their feud literally began. His presence and commanding intensity permeated the entire set as he assaulted. The most notorious event took place in the early 1960s during a Western production. Jack moved to take a wide 2OT position. It was a straightforward setup with equal screen space for both men, nothing ostentatious. Wayne's whole face hardened as he looked over and squinted. He approached Jack directly, paused just inches from his face, poked a finger into his chest, and let out a growl loud enough for the boom mic to pick it up. "Back off, buddy. My frame is this." Jack remained still. He was simply in disbelief. Yes, actors argued, but Wayne didn't. Like a land baron, he made territorial claims. When Wayne noticed the hush behind him, the crew paused, and he grinned as though he had just said something that God had written. Jack thought Wayne wanted more than just to be the star after that day. He desired for everyone else to appear as props. Wayne was known for making last-minute blocking adjustments, changing lights, and even directing directors' positions. In the middle of a scene, he would physically move performers by seizing their elbow or shoulder and abruptly yanking them half a step to the left or right. "He didn't act with you," Jack said to another actor years later. "He behaved as though you were pieces of furniture that he had to go past." Professionalism, according to Wayne's supporters. Jack referred to it as bulldozing. They never made amends, laughed it off, or acted as though there had been a misunderstanding. Jack would shrug and murmur, "I survived it," when questioned about working with the Duke. That's sufficient. Third place goes to Marlon Brando. By making every set a circus, Marlon Brando infuriated Jack Elam more than any other actor could. Because of this, the animosity erupted in a single, iconic moment when Brando declared that Jack Elam, the director, and the script were all irrelevant. Jack had meticulously rehearsed a stressful discussion part during a shoot in the mid-1960s. Brando arrived late, carrying a meal, and hardly said hello to anyone. Jack said his opening sentence just when the cameras rolled. Brando remained silent. Rather, as though taunting Jack, he squatted, took another loud bite, and started reciting his lines word for word. The staff started giggling. Jack didn't. Every muscle in his face froze in shock, his jaw tightening and his eyes narrowing. Later, while biting into a piece of bread, Brando shrugged and remarked, "Your lines sounded better in my head." He claimed that he could take over the scene at any time. For Jack, it was an outright insult to the craft itself, not just to himself. He told pals that day that you can't trust a man who treats a script like toilet paper. Brando's erratic behavior didn't end there. He abruptly altered his blocking in another scene, requiring Jack to improvise a response that wasn't part of the script. The director praised Brando's natural talent and thought it was fantastic. Jack left the set trembling with annoyance. Professionalism meant discipline to him. Professionalism, to Brando, was doing whatever made him laugh at the time. Jack's response was immediate when Brando was brought up in an interview years later. He sighed, rolled his eyes, and said the line he had been saying for decades. He was a minefield. You never knew when he would make a big deal out of you simply to see what would happen. There was never any reconciliation or apology. Jack remained irate, and Brando remained erratic until the very end. This one didn't. Steve McQueen is number 4. It took place on a steamy afternoon at Melody Ranch in 1967 while Jack Elam was filming a minor role in a mid-budget western. Everyone was moving fast, the sun was harsh, and the set was tight. Steve McQueen was the only one who didn't move when he saw that Jack was standing closer to the camera than he was. Jack became the object of McQueen's insecurities the instant a camera favored him, even for a brief while, because McQueen detested losing the limelight. Jack's choreography caused him to wind up closer to the camera than McQueen during an action sequence, which was the breaking point. It wasn't deliberate, but McQueen saw it right away. "He's not closer to camera than me," he stated loudly enough for the whole stunt crew to hear, walking directly to the director and giving Jack a chilly half-smile. "Fix it." Unsure of how to react, the director hesitated. McQueen didn't hold back. A wooden crate that had been used to mark Jack's stance was picked up by him as he marched back into the set and smashed it down 2 feet behind him. There was no mistaking the message. His position was not to be overshadowed by Jack's. Jack remained still. The gesture's trivial nature astounded him. McQueen intensified it later that day. In order to prevent Jack from moving, McQueen kept getting in his way during a rehearsal. Not enough to ruin the action, but enough to make Jack change course in the middle of his performance. Jack whispered to a crew member following the third disruption. "He's measuring, not doing." McQueen was defending his brand, according to his supporters. The king of cool had to seem flawless from every perspective. Jack noticed something quite different. Confidence disguised as insecurity. Quietly, the conflict intensified. There were a series of faint, jagged cuts, but no screaming matches. McQueen shifted his stance, moved props, and leaned into Jack's frame to allow the camera to organically go towards him. Small actions together to provide a distinct message. "I own this set." Jack was never able to forget it. When questioned about McQueen years later, Jack merely responded, "He played cool." He was not feeling cool. The resentment persisted. Kirk Douglas is number 5. Jack Elam saw Kirk Douglas racing across the stage like a guy getting ready for battle, and that's when the trouble started. Douglas was not a social butterfly. He didn't introduce scenes slowly. Jack immediately felt the force of his arrival, which demanded that the room adapt to him. During a shoot in the late 1950s, they had their first significant altercation. A straightforward toot, in which performers split the frame equally, was being blocked by the crew. Steady and prepared, Jack took his mark. Douglas intervened, looked around the stage for the optimum light, and then strode directly in Jack's direction. He shoved Jack out of the hot zone with a scathing, unrepentant shove to his shoulder and said, "This angle works better for the star." Without hesitancy, without a smile, without any attempt at nuance. There was silence on the set. Jack refrained from shoving back. His gaze conveyed everything. This was a collision. Douglas was unconcerned. He went on as if nothing out of the ordinary had occurred. Douglas's violence was not confined to that one instance. He battled with the cameraman while turning his body and moving props to get the lens exactly where he wanted it. He viewed each frame as an area to be conquered. It was the kind of hunger that prevented cooperation, and Jack detested it. Kirk did not fight for the moment, he later revealed to a buddy. He struggled to get the camera. Years later, there was no peaceful handshake or reconciliation. When Douglas physically shoved Jack aside for a better angle on the set, the resentment remained precisely where it started. Jack, of course, said it succinctly. While some men attack, others take action. The second was done by Douglas. Jack Elam also never forgot it. For the remainder of his life, Jack Elam held that grudge. Buried, quiet, but not forgotten. Now, the question is whether you believe this rivalry went too far or if his response was warranted. Please share your opinions in the comments section and remember to hit the notification bell, like, and subscribe so you don't miss any more secret Hollywood content. The resentment persisted. Kirk Douglas is number 5. Jack Elam saw Kirk Douglas racing across the stage like a guy getting ready for battle, and that's when the trouble started. Douglas was not a social butterfly. He didn't introduce scenes slowly. Jack immediately felt the force of his arrival, which demanded that the room adapt to him. During a shoot in the late 1950s, they had their first significant altercation. A straightforward toot, in which performers split the frame equally, was being blocked by the crew. Steady and prepared, Jack took his mark. Douglas intervened, looked around the stage for the optimum light, and then strode directly in Jack's direction. He shoved Jack out of the hot zone with a scathing, unrepentant shove to his shoulder and said, "This angle works better for the star." Without hesitancy, without a smile, without any attempt at nuance. There was silence on the set. Jack refrained from shoving back. His gaze conveyed everything. This was a collision. Douglas was unconcerned. He went on as if nothing out of the ordinary had occurred. Douglas's violence was not confined to that one instance. He battled with the cameraman while turning his body and moving props to get the lens exactly where he wanted it. He viewed each frame as an area to be conquered. It was the kind of hunger that prevented cooperation, and Jack detested it. Kirk did not fight for the moment, he later revealed to a buddy. He struggled to get the camera. Years later, there was no peaceful handshake or reconciliation. When Douglas physically shoved Jack aside for a better angle on the set, the resentment remained precisely where it started. Jack, of course, said it succinctly. While some men attack, others take action. The second was done by Douglas. Jack Elam also never forgot it. For the remainder of his life, Jack Elam